There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Now we are recording so that folks that didn't get to see this today can watch it later. Mayor, do you want to officially call this meeting to order? There should. Excellent. Could you use the microphone next time? It's probably easier. That way it'll pick up on the audio here.
Test. Call this meeting to order Saturday, October 29th at 6:08 p.m. And first order of business would be to declare if there are any conflicts. And right off the bat, I'm going to declare a potential conflict of interest as my husband, Chief Hollett, works for the fire department. Are there any interest?
All right, so what are we here for tonight? We're here to talk about the public safety fee. You know, I'm in an envious position similar to Councillor Hooker, where I can say I wasn't here when this was done. That being said, it is my job to explain what's been going on and how we got here. So obviously, the reason we started public safety fee is because we're going to be short on money. This year, we're in a unique position because we received a lot of federal funding through ARPA, but that funding is running out. When that does run out, we're looking at a deficit of roughly $382,000. And that's why we did the public safety fee. And these charts, I think these ones printed some up there, but I think they ran out. And just to give you an idea of percentage wise of the city budget, 5% of it comes from the public safety fee. If you guys don't mind, it'll be a little dark. That's fine. Okay. Just didn't want anybody tripping when they came in, because then we'd have a lawsuit and we'd owe even more money. You know, as an attorney, I can make that joke, so it's all right. Okay, so how do we get here? I'm sure everyone has noticed costs have gone up. We're experiencing inflation pretty hard, and those costs, affect everybody, including cities. So when we're buying equipment, price has gone up. What hasn't gone up is the revenue that the city receives. Part of that issue is that in the 1990s, there were initiatives on the ballot that capped property tax, which is a good thing. Nobody likes paying property tax. So as a citizen, that's great, but there's less money coming in and less money available for cities to tap into. A lot of people have asked, is this legal? Some people think we just kind of made this up because obviously the levy, the public safety levy, which is a similar ask, failed. That is true. Yes, these type of fees are legal. In fact, there's roughly 50 cities in Oregon that use various types of fees, and they're different depending on which city you live in. Some of them call it the public safety fee like we do. A lot of them call it the city services fee, and sometimes it's broken out specifically. They'll call it the parks, police, and fire fee, etc. So a lot of different names for it, but it is legal, and most cities include it in their utility bill. And I just want to give you an idea of what cities are using this. So this is a list of, I don't know, about 12, 15 cities that have similar fees. One thing that is unique to Oak Ridge is we are the highest that I found at $22. Yeah, you can see some other cities are at 17 there for Creswell, 17, Corvallis, 17. We also listed in the second column whether or not a levy was attempted. Just felt that was fair to list that. And a lot of cities face the same issues we did, where they tried to levy, it failed. They still needed to keep services going. So they implemented a fee. And I'll go back to this for more comparisons later. Some other people in the room here. Yeah. Okay, so what do other cities do? You know, the fee is, you know, different amount per city. Some cities have made it permanent. Some cities have put a cap, certain number of years that it'll be imposed, and then they'll revisit it, similar to what we have done. And then there are different methods of enforcement. Some cities have gone all out and they use all the enforcement methods available to them, including fines, fees, sending people to collections, shutting off their water, putting liens on people's property. We have not done any of that at this point. We've just felt that, you know, it's a new idea, and we have not taken action against anyone. And we've also got a pretty generous exemption. If you take a look, there's forms there. If you believe you qualify to be exempt, we do allow that. And a lot of folks, you know, are on fixed incomes and probably qualify. So you can take a look at that. On the back side, it'll show what your income level needs to be in order to qualify for that. So a lot of folks have asked, isn't there something else we can do to cut spending, save money, bring in more revenue? This has been looked at, you know, every year, and obviously it's something that we try to do. A lot of cuts have been made. If you read the letters from our police chief and fire chief, which are available in the back, and of course you can ask questions of them directly, you know, we've seen a lot of cuts in personnel over the last 10 years. You know, this town used to be known as a speed trap, but now we have less officers to actually be out there and enforcing our speed limits. So you can see it, you know, with your own eyes, and I'm sure you've all noticed that yourselves. Same thing with fire and across all departments. We're just operating with a lot less people. You know, parks, library, we've cut everywhere that we can, but we're always constantly looking for more ways to cut. Since I got here, I've told all the department heads, anytime they're purchasing anything, they have to check eBay first before they make a purchase, for light bulbs, batteries, whatever. And it's small amounts, but if you can save $5, $10, $100 here and there, it does add up. So we're going down to the micro level, trying to save where we can. Some of this ARPA funding we received from the federal government has allowed us to do some remodeling of City Hall, et cetera, which is helpful because that money has to be spent. We're spending it on upgrades that are more energy efficient. So now we're all, you know, LED lighting, the more energy efficient air conditioning, that, you know, all that kind of stuff, because it does save some money. So we're doing that, but it still doesn't quite save us enough money. I'm sure you've noticed, you know, City Hall has been closed on Fridays. So down here, there's some ideas. And again, these are just ideas. None of them are pleasant, but these are alternatives to a public safety fee. such as totally closing the library. I personally would hate to see that happen, but we're just putting all the options on the table so we can have a discussion about it. We could also close the parks. And what I mean by that is the upkeep would stop. It would be, bare minimal. We'd lock the bathrooms, not clean those. These are all bad options, but they are options. And then, of course, more layoffs. And that really is where the city can save the most money, because it costs a lot to employ someone with insurance, which is going up every year. But I will show you that the city has been quite frugal on their wages. I don't know if you can see that, but this just shows these are the Oregon averages for these jobs. And this is what Oak Ridge pays for these jobs. And don't get me wrong, nobody's complaining that we are underpaid compared to the state average, but we just want to point this out that on average, everyone's underpaid by almost $20,000 per position. Or Colleen is like $48,000 underpaid. But again, we're not complaining. We just want to show you that we are not wasting money or overpaying people. So again, back to these ideas. These things have been looked into. We're constantly looking for ways to save money. These are options. But again, nobody really wants to lose the ambulance service. If we did that, we'd have to rely on hopefully getting a contract with a private ambulance, but it's going to be coming from the valley most likely, and you're going to have to wait an hour to get an ambulance. Not a popular idea at all. It's also not a popular idea to lose cops. It's not a popular idea to sell off city property. But again, these are some ideas. Everything should be on the table, should be looked at. And as we have a discussion, I'm happy to jot down ideas that you folks might have. The grant applications, we're constantly applying for grants. Got quite a few in at any given time. And we're always looking for some help with that. If anybody has grant writing experience, these things can sometimes be tedious, and that's why we put out applications to join committees. We're still short of committee members on the budget committee and all the committees, but that's a way that folks can help. So that's just kind of a general overview of where we're at. There's a copy of the ordinance up on the table that you can read. Again, letters from the police and fire department. Applications to join committees. And there's also the map that you see up there, that's from Bonneville Power. They just asked, they're going to be, you probably noticed, replacing the power poles in town. And they're going to have some backup generators located in the city. And they just want to let people know that that's going to be happening. So that's what that announcement is for. So again, the reason we call it the public safety fee is because without it, the cuts will most likely have to be made from our public safety services. So yes, it's true, technically goes to the general fund, but again, if we don't have enough money in the general fund, we're going to have to make cuts. Where are we going to make cuts? It's to personnel, police and fire. That's why it's called the public safety fee. So I think, at this point, we're going to open up to questions. We've got city councilors here. We have our finance director here. I'm here. There's a microphone. You're welcome to come down and ask questions, start the discussion. If you have trouble coming down here, maybe you could ask someone to bring it up to you. It is wireless, so it could be handed to you. But I think it's probably a good place to start the discussion.
Well, the only reason I asked you to use the mic is that way it'll get picked up online.
My name's Sherry. I have a couple of questions. From what I understand, I haven't been into the city hall for a while because I mail my bill. Because I don't like coming to the city hall for a number of reasons. I won't share them. My question is, why did you spend dollars since you're trying to cut back on revenue so you can spend it for other things? And you build a wall where the plastic window used to be for people coming in to pay their bill, and then now you can't. That wall separates you from us, and I think that's the whole point, in my opinion. Now, the second question I have is city property. Why don't you sell city property instead of leasing it? You can get that amount of money, you can budget it, and we won't be in the red, so to speak. We're trying to vote on the budget when it was in the, what was it? You guys call it red and we call it black. I don't know. When you can't spend any money, you don't have any money. So I just don't understand. You spend money for all of this other stuff that does not relate to what the community needs. And you put up a stupid wall in the city hall to separate us. If you want people to come in and give you ideas and suggestions, whether you listen to them or not, quit putting up walls. Okay? I don't like the walls. So the last one that I have is what happened to all of our EMTs. I remember Chrissy and her husband when they first came in, when we had an incident on Highway 58. You remember that one? Okay. And I was all for you. If you guys have changed, you have your own agenda, own personal agenda. And I have seen it time and time again. And I don't appreciate it because I voted for every one of you guys and I would never vote for you again. I'm ashamed to be an Oak Ridgean.
All right, who'd like to take the first question about the, who'd like to take the question about the wall built in City Hall? Where'd that money come from? There's a microphone right there.
I think the question about the wall in City Hall, myself and both Colleen can answer that, but I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I was witness to an incident that occurred inside the front room where a person that came in was irate and extremely verbally abusive with the staff up front. And had I been them, I would have felt the way that I saw it was their safety was in jeopardy in this particular incident. The man was screaming, leaning over the counter. So it was their decision, but I mean, I have to say I absolutely support it. I think the staff's safety needs to be of the utmost importance. It's not the first time somebody from the city comes in screaming over the counter, throwing fists and those types of things. And that was one of the main reasons why that wall went up. I do think it looks pretty professional and nice. And I've been in there when people come in and I have heard nothing but people saying how much they really like the new room. So I think a big majority really was for the safety.
Right.
Can I make a comment? You just said?
Let's go ahead and let Colleen.
Yeah, let's explain where the money came from for that wall.
So the money came from ARPA funds and ARPA funds. The ARPA funds, we are allowed to spend on infrastructure, stuff like that. So that is where we got the funds to do the wall. The wall was something that we also get dinged on from our insurance company every year because of how unsecure our building is. We also get to pay more insurance because our parking area is insecure. So it's a government building and they like to see it, more secure, and we feel better in there dealing with a lot of hostile people that like to think that the gals taking the water bill are the ones making the rules. So it's more a safety thing than anything.
Yeah, one short comment. Okay. As far as the safety for staff and so forth, I understand that. I truly agree with that. But you have a police department that's sitting right underneath your flooring. Why didn't you call the police department and say, officer, we need you right now? Emergency.
Well, that did happen. I didn't say it didn't happen, but before somebody throws a fit, I mean, there's only so quickly a police officer can be called and come upstairs. This was a very irate person. I walked in when it happened. I saw what they had to deal with. It was completely uncalled for. And I was totally understand their need for things.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Don. You want to pass the microphone down to Don Kenyon?
Yeah, I jotted down, Sherry, one of your other questions was, why don't we sell property instead of leasing it? And I understand why you're asking that, because way back when, you know, probably around the time when you and I met in 2010 or 2008, the city was regularly leasing properties in the industrial park. And of course, way before that, and even after that, it was probably, I think the first time we actually sold a property. Actually, before that, didn't we sell to Kenwood?
And I just want to mention that we actually have 4 offers right now, or starts of offers on properties in the industrial park, and an additional developer that wants to build another apartment complex, not in the OAP, but nearby. So that is started. But as you have all probably noticed, property values skyrocketed in the last year or so. So we need to get new valuations on our property, because we don't want to go off the prices from 5 years ago. We want to sell them at fair market value. So that is in the works. We were also waiting for our new hire, Rick Zylstra. That way we didn't have to pay $150 an hour to LCOG for some of the analysis we need on those sales. So those will be coming to city council soon, once we get proper valuations on property.
Yeah, but Sherry, to finish answering, is several years ago, probably 2019 or possibly even before that, but in 2019, I know for sure we sold a very large piece of property in the industrial park for $400,000 to Texas Pride. And I think they're starting, actually right before the fires came, they were starting to actually put their fencing up to, you know, start building. They're ready for that now. And we also in 2022 sold that great big yellow building that sits kind of higher on the hill at the industrial park. We sold that for $350,000 or a little more. But anyway, I just wanted to assure you that we are selling property now. It's not only lease, but we also still lease when somebody wants to lease. Right now, we're leasing to Bonneville Power, aren't we? A lot at the industrial park because they only need it temporarily. Yeah, but just so you know, selling property in the industrial park doesn't save the city budget, because all the money that's sold from within the industrial park has to stay in the industrial park. It gets turned, in other words, we use that money like we used it to build the Kokanee Road. The next project I think we're doing this year is we're putting in water lines and sewer lines all the way down Kokanee, so that those lots actually have more value and we can sell them for more. Right now, or over the last several years, a lot of people have looked at those lots interested, but then they turn their heads away because there's no water, no sewer. It's not shovel ready. It's not ready to build on right now. So we've actually lost a lot of people because of that. Absolutely, but we do need to move on.
Okay, you're willing to put in water and sewer line over in the new addition. What about the community itself? We've been asking for new roads. We've been asking for new sewer lines. We've been asking, and nothing has ever been started or even thought about. So no, we're gonna use this money for something else. So in the meantime, our roads have big old holes in them. And you got people that come in and they fill them up. They don't know what they're doing when they do fill them up. And then it just breaks more. Then you allow all these trucks to come down these roads. Now we've got crappy roads in my house. Okay,
Right.
so you tell us you're gonna take off taxes, franchise, whatever else, so you can put in a new sewer line and a new water over on a new district. This is how big cities run their groups. They start out of town and it looks so pretty for a few years, and then they build and annex, and then this is crap, and this is new.
Right. Well, that's,
I'm tired of it.
I understand. I understand your frustration, but as Councilor Kenyon was trying to explain, so for the industrial park, and it's only the industrial park area, the way that was set up is that if we sell a piece, it has to be reinvested in the industrial park to improve the other pieces of property in the industrial park so they can sell for more money. That's only with the industrial park. There are other city properties that is not an issue with, such as Little Texas. That is an area we're looking to develop here shortly. And that money would come directly back to the city. Again, it's a hypothetical at this point, but that is in the works.
Yeah. But also to respond, Sherry, I really would be happy to sit down with you and show you how the budget works. The street, you're upset about the streets and you're assuming that we're spending money that should be going somewhere else on the streets or vice versa. And the truth is, that's not how the budgeting works. The streets are only, that fund is funded by tax dollars from every time people fill up their gas tanks, all over Oregon even. We get shared revenues from the state of Oregon for very small amounts from elsewhere, but we have our own gas tax here. And we also, there's lots of different ways the money comes into that fund, but we don't borrow from the water department to repair a street, or we don't just take from the emergency services fund to pay for a street. The budget has strict laws about the way money comes in and goes out of every fund. And I can assure you the city is following those laws. And I'll show you sometime at home.
Yeah, that's correct. There are certain funds that can only be used for specific purposes. We are doing some street repairs. I can't remember, what did we just approve at the 2 council meetings ago? What? Cherry Street. So Cherry Street is being repaved within months. And that's already been, we got the funding through a grant. So work will start on that soon. Next question. Oh,
I'd like to get back to what we're here for tonight, which is the safety fee. And we've been, how long now? A year, 2 years? I don't know, paying this. I pay it every month, not because I want to, but because I feel like we have to. And I know from listening to your meetings that we have so many waivers that where we're not making enough money to cover what it was intended to do. I've heard almost every one of you say you don't like the fee, you want it gone. So I'm hoping that tonight we get an answer. We're either going to move forward and we're all on this fee and hope that it works, or if it's not working, how are we going to fix it? And I've been here 45 years, I think. And the ambulance has never been self-sufficient. We've always struggled with that. And it's because we live where we live. I mean, we all know it takes 2 hours to make a run. I volunteered on it years and years ago. I know that it's needed. I would hate to see us lose it. Unfortunately, we've got to find a way to fund it. And if this is what it takes to fund it, then this is what we need to do as a community. I don't know if it means going back out for the bond again, or, doing a better job of making people people understand why we need it, but I hope that tonight we leave here with an answer. We all have our likes and dislikes of what's going on with our budget and what's going on in this community, but I think we all love it and we all want it. And so, you know, we can get off on other things, and I agree with Sherry, there's a lot of things that maybe we don't like. But what we're here tonight for is the safety fee, and I'm tired of hearing about it every single meeting of how nobody wants it, nobody likes it. Well, life, that's what life's like. We don't like things, we don't want things. But I think it's time to say, citizens, we have to do this, you're gonna have to pay it, and then enforce it. Or say, okay, we're doing away with it, this is what we're gonna do, and those are gonna be tough. Those are gonna be tough decisions, and I wouldn't want to be sitting there having to be the ones to make them. But we've been playing with this for a long time. So I really think, or I hope, that tonight we get an answer and not just say, well, the town.
So just in terms of numbers with the exemptions, last time we crunched the numbers, got some data, I believe 73% of the folks that could be paying are paying. 27% either have exemptions, or of course, there's a few people who just simply have not paid. And just because we haven't taken any enforcement action yet, doesn't mean that we won't. You know, it obviously what people owe just adds up. But that'll be a council decision at some point to see what they want to do for folks who simply haven't paid and they still owe and don't have an exemption. So just want to point that out. Anybody else want to address question?
So like James said, the issue that I'm seeing on the finance side is that we're billing this funds out, we're billing for this money to come in, and the last I looked, we're under 80% of people who are actually paying it. And that's been my thing that I've come to council saying that, you know, when they make their decision, if we were to get everybody to pay it and make it enforceable, we could even drop the fee down. I haven't run the full numbers on that, but that would be something that would be, I think, spread more evenly across the board. If everybody's paying it, we can pay a little less and make it enforceable. I mean, the way it is with it not being enforced isn't helping us. I totally agree. Except for the people who are stepping up and paying it. So I would like to see it stay in place and be enforceable so that we can share the payment on it and drop it down so that the ones who are paying it are not paying as much as they are.
And I think it should be mentioned that amount is reviewed by council every year.
One of the things that I did want to mention was that the fire department has always been dependent upon tax dollars to operate. But in the mid-90s, Medicare reduced the dollars that they pay for an ambulance transport, and it was significantly reduced. We went from probably 75% of what we billed out, Medicare reimbursed us for. Now that number is down around 30%. The good news is that Medicare is currently doing a study to see what it actually costs a department to run an ambulance down to the hospital. And they're looking at reestablishing some of those dollars that they took away. The problem is, you know, the federal government works slowly. So the study is supposed to take 5 years, but it should increase our dollars at some point. Yeah, and we have been, the state actually went to the federal government, and they've got a program that they started about 4 years ago, and it's called the GEMT program. ground emergency medical transport. And Medicaid and managed care insurances like Oregon Health Plan have actually developed some supplemental payments from what they reimburse. So those are starting to increase. We went from about 40,000 a few years ago to this last year. We got about 90,000 out of it. So we are getting some additional revenues. It's just taking time.
Okay. Hello. I don't remember exactly how this part of your question was worded, but I wanted to point out that the ambulance most certainly is not the only thing that has an issue in our budget. We have just received an audit yesterday that shows us that 8 different departments in the year 2021 were overspent. So not just ambulance.
Well, and to be fair, I wasn't singling out the ambulance, I just meant fire EMS, because that's what we're all worried about losing, is our fire EMS and police. And,
Right.
you know, and I've been around long enough to know, I don't know now what it costs for you guys to make a round trip on, but it used to be unreal then, so back when I did know.
Isn't it around 2,500 or 3,000 for a run?
Currently, we bill about 3,000 and we average collection of $1,000 on each ambulance. So
Sorry, I'm not gonna turn, I'm just saying that might be things that we need to hear more of in the community. Because I don't know that everybody thinks about that, you know, and I wonder sometimes firemen, I pay for firemen, but does that hurt you guys? Because if I have firemen and you take me in the ambulance, you're not gonna get anything other than what my insurance will pay, correct?
I think we do make a little bit of money off of it. We can break even on it, but it's a benefit to the community.
My name is Paul Scott. I'm a new resident to the community. I've been here almost 3 years with my wife. I'll give you a little outside opinion. My wife worked as an EMT for multiple years. She was an ambulance attendant for about 2 decades, I would imagine. Came in from Eugene, I'm an 84 going, she stayed in California. Most of my life was in Iowa. So I will tell you, if you're a new resident thinking about coming to Oak Ridge, ambulance service is important. And it's important that it's quick. We were here less than 6 months, and our mother was living with us. Had a stroke, so in since incapacitated and moved on, but the ambulance service was there in 10 minutes. She might have died that night. She needed to get treatment. So just as an outsider, I can't speak with you. I'm still learning. I love it here. I know I've enjoyed the people. I just say as an person coming in here, I think it's a critical service, and you should do what you can to keep it.
I just had a friend say that she cannot get the meeting. She's been trying to get on Zoom, but she can't plug the meeting.
Oh, thank you. It might be that James has to physically hit a button to allow each person to enter. And he's been busy, so.
Well, I'm not seeing anyone waiting.
Margaret Jones said that she can't get on.
Well, she's,
I'll tell her to try again.
yeah, tell her to click on it again.
Is there any more questions from your? Okay, maybe we could talk about microphones for that.
My name is Judy, and I didn't pay the phone thing for months because it irritated the heck out of me. And I was for properties, and I was getting 3 separate bills. I had, direct deposit for my water bill, and it took me. I think I had to look at it about twice before I did, because I couldn't just take a check from me, or they wanted a check from me, and I don't get a check. I had to leave the bank, which isn't here anymore because they moved out. And I go to Gene and get a thing and bring it in there, even though I had to deposit it with my other things in my account. And it just, I'm up to date now, right? I finally got, it wasn't easy. And, how much does it cost the city to send out all those stupid bills every year? It's just crazy. Should be made easy. People, they said, do it online, I couldn't, so I didn't check.
Yeah, as you will see from that chart that I can pull back up, we are one of the very few cities that has separate bills. Pull this up, but that was a council decision based on public input when the fee was implemented. Does someone want to address that?
Not on the water bill. Work here, the $22 not going to pay, then it would.
I do agree that it shouldn't, that we could save money by separate billings, but when it was implemented, citizens put their input in and they most definitely did not want it on their water bill. I hope that answers your question.
Why people like me that can't be on, pay on their water bill, but the automatic agreement, or at least giving them a choice, eh?
Right, I can't answer that part of it. Colleen, could you answer that part of it?
The issue was why are the bills separate, right? People getting two bills, a utility bill and a public safety bill. The suggestion was putting them together.
So do you have that fixed now currently? Oh, okay, because there is a way, yeah, to set it up, and I think that, me coming on, because I'm new to the city as well, I came on at the very end of February. That was one of my main questions, was why are we sending out two bills with two different billing numbers? Double postage, double paper, double everything. So that's one of my suggestions to the council when they decide what they're doing with this. If it goes forward, that it needs to be on one bill. So I agree that it was confusing with the different numbers and trying to get it fixed.
Pauline just said that it is set up now to where you can do an auto pay. But I absolutely understand your frustration, and I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on what Councilor Coker was talking about. And initially, when it was presented to the council, it was presented in a way that, like she said, had you not pay your fee, your water would be shut off. And that really created an uproar with citizens. And that was absolutely, among all the other things that were going along with that public safety fee. So when councilors voted, I did not vote. I did not vote, participate on that part. But when the discussion took place on that, they felt that they wanted to separate that so that if a person didn't pay their fee, they wouldn't lose their water. It wasn't, completely thought out of the actual work behind the scenes that the staff, how they would have to bill that out. That wasn't really discussed at that time. It was done that way to try to protect citizens so they didn't have a water shut off. Then later, after the work actually started getting done and the bills started going out, staff realized that they couldn't take that bill and put it in the same envelope as their water bill, because their water bill prints here and their public safety bill prints here. And it would take somebody, a week to match up each bill and get both of them in the same envelope. That's something that we, had no idea that that's the logistics of doing the billing. So that's why it went out in a separate bill. After it had already started, it came back to council and was explained that, hey, this is why, we're having to send out double billing. It's taking staff double duty time. It costs extra on postage and all those things. And then the concern that you're talking about. So that has been something they have been talking about, trying to correct that. I don't know how they'll decide to do it, but I just wanted to explain that that's why it became that way.
Right, and again, that was a specific request that council did to have those bills be separate, so we would need council action to combine them. It got cut off from this chart, but on the paper copies, it does show that Kaiser and Corvallis are the only other two cities that have separate bills. And those are, Kaiser and Corvallis are also pretty high compared to them. Oh, that'd be great.
Okay, the thing that I would suggest is that you can still have a separate billing, but only have it on one sheet, because on the water bill, you can see how much water you've used, and then it has tallied, and then this is your bill. And that's located top and bottom, but on the same sheet, you can make one line statement, public safety bill for $22. It's there. That way what I do is I write one check and I add my $22 within my utility bill, my water bill, and I send one envelope just to make it a little simpler for the staff. It's just like, here's a water bill. There's a statement down here with a little asterisk or star to remind the people. Public safety fee, $22. And then you can go ahead and just add it in with your water bill and you don't have to worry about it.
Anyone else have a question?
Hi, I'm Kingsbury, and I too pay multiple bills, water bills. And I noticed that some of these properties just have 1 meter, and yet I'm billed for the number of units on that property. Is that the way you bill normally? Are you billing by the meter or by the unit? And I'm paying the fee whether the place is vacant or up. It's very difficult to, a tenant that they have to pay an extra $22, especially someone that may be a little strange here and they can't figure that one out. And of course, and then they're mad at me. So I have passed a couple of them on, but mainly I'm paying the entire freight. And when you have a $600 and $700 water bill, it gets pretty tough.
Right, Joy, I don't know if you picked up a copy, but at the table out there, the ordinance, it includes the exhibit, right?
Yes, I believe so. Last page.
The ordinance it's written in there that every unit is gonna be billed for the fee, and that's so that it's fair to everyone. In other words, no, actually. They also get they get billed for every unit.
Yeah, the question was just so people can hear, mobile home parks are charged, but hotels are not charged for the 25, 30 hotel rooms.
And the reason for that is because hotel visitors are not residents of Oak Ridge. They are transient. They're not considered permanent, residents like all the other units.
No, you'd have to pay that on an Airbnb. I think that was just what we decided to do, because I mean, you'd be charging a hotel $6,000. An Airbnb is different than a hotel. Well, you're still getting a bill, right? Yeah, we're still charging you. What we don't charge is a separate city tax on Airbnbs.
Yeah, Actually, I should clarify what I said is, hotels in Oak Ridge are charged the fee, but one fee for the hotel for their water service, not for each individual room that they have. So you have an Airbnb, it's one building. Even if you were renting out 2 different rooms on the same night, you would only get the one fee. Does that help? Thank you.
We got a question online from Kristen. We'll see if this will work.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Kristen Dodge and I live on School Street. I think I heard mentioned that an auto pay option might be in the works for the safety bill. What would it take to get an auto pay set up for our utilities? Because garbage has an auto pay. Lane Electric has its own setup, so I'm not worried about that. But when it comes to the water bill and the safety fee, there is no auto pay setup. It seems to be a pretty outdated system.
Okay, so we actually do have that option, and I know that a few times, Leah, who does our billing, has put flyers in there for, to have your bill auto paid. So if that's something you want, you can definitely either call and have her set you up, or come in and get a form and she can set you up with that. Because we
Okay,
like,
thank you.
it's easier on us too.
I also have one other question, if you'll permit me. I know I mentioned several months ago about forensic audits. I know that Oak Ridge does occasionally do audits, but my understanding is the last person who did an audit was someone who worked for the city of Oak Ridge. What would it take to get an independent forensic audit just to make sure there isn't any money going through the cracks?
For those that couldn't hear, that question is, do we have independent auditors that look at our budget? Does someone like to answer that question?
Hi, Kristen, this is Dawn. I want to let you know that we do have independent auditors. I don't know if you caught that, but we do have an independent auditor. It is not a forensic auditor. James, do you know how to explain the difference between a forensic? That's like when they're looking for trouble or fraud, right? Embezzlement.
Yeah, I think forensic auditor is going to go a little deeper and it's going to cost a lot more money.
Yeah. Yeah, but we did have in our finance department, he was a forensic auditor in his previous experience. So just having him working in the city office, a lot of not policies maybe, but procedures changed in the time that Bill was here. That was about 4 years ago. And actually, the city did hire a forensic auditor at one time. It was back in 2012, I'm pretty sure. It's totally separate from our annual audit, which is automatic. Every single year we have to do an audit.
I don't wish to suggest that anyone currently in office is performing any malfeasance. I just asked because I know that Oak Ridge has had a sad history of such things. So it was just something I was wondering.
I would like to add, if you're familiar with audits and you would like to look at some of our audits, they are posted on the State of Oregon Department of Revenue. Screw up the website, but if you Google State of Oregon Department of Revenue audit, you'll be able to type in the city and the year that you're looking for and find our audits.
Thank you for your time. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Would someone like to explain the findings of our recent audit? Were there any issues of malfeasance or shenanigans found in that audit that just came out and which will be available to the public soon? But this just came in on Friday. Okay, maybe no one wants to answer that question. We just received our audit. Colleen can hold it up so people can see. This is from the independent auditors. We passed. No issues found with that audit. Go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
Actually, there were 2 significant deficiencies found.
No, I'm talking about, did they find any criminal acts?
Oh, no.
Did they find any malfeasance?
Is that all you wanted me to cover?
Yeah, but now we should go ahead and explain what the 2 issues were that they found, just so people aren't freaked out. So
Okay.
that would be,
I'm gonna try and find it right here.
And for full transparency, just got this audit handed to yesterday, so we will be going over this in council meeting very soon. Let's let her answer the.
We're gonna finish this one and then we'll get right to you, okay? All right, the 2, let me make sure I'm reading the right part. The first one says, when reviewing the 21-22 budget, it was noted that the city published a notice of the budget hearing on June 14th, when the budget hearing was held on June 17th. Oregon budget law requires that the notice of a budget hearing be advertised from 5 to 30 days prior, and that was only 4 days. So that was we need to do better next time. And then the next item was the expenditures were all authorized appropriations with few exceptions, and those are the 8 that I mentioned earlier. And I'll name the departments, the police department, the library department, allocated part in the general fund, the emergency services fund, the wood stove replacement fund, 2 parts of the water fund, and 1 part of the wastewater fund, all had over expenditures. And to note, our auditor actually referred to them like they were minimal, like it was no big deal, which surprised me.
right, in other words, it's not something that we're going to be fined for. We'll use this mic up front now.
Mike, can you hear me? Okay, my question is, you have fees for the fire safety and ambulance and whatnot. Can you tell me, do businesses pay the same amount as a residential person pays? Do they pay, or do they have to pay more than what a residential place does?
So, can you hear me? The fee is the same whether it's residential or business. It wasn't until we did this recent study that happens to be on the board right there that we found out some cities actually charge based on the size of their meter, just like they do for water. And that would make it where most instances businesses would be paying more because they typically have bigger water meters. But that wasn't researched or discussed when we first implemented this.
Okay, and then also, we have several vacant buildings in town. do they pay for any kind of service as far as fire protection or anything? Or since they're vacant, nobody living there, do they just, kind of get a free?
That is actually also covered in the ordinance, and every lot is charged unless there's absolutely no building, like it's uninhabitable, like grass only. Vacant lot is the only lots that wouldn't be charged at all. A dilapidated building or home or business, they do get not only the public safety fee, but they are paying their taxes just like you and I are. Or their property is going into default and being sold, you know, for foreclosures. Yeah, they are responsible for the same as you and I.
Okay, and then the last part of my question is, I know they, like West Spur, High Prairie, people further up the highway, they are able to use our services. Do they pay you into it at all?
Yeah, we have IGA, they're called intergovernmental agreements. We have those with both the Hazeldale Fire District and also the city of West Fir for both, for the city of West Fir, we have both a police contract and a fire contract with them. And then for the city, or excuse me, Hazeldale Rural Fire District, we have a fire service contract with them. I believe the Hazeldale is 65,070, right in there. 80,000 altogether for Hazeldale, and West Fir is in the 36, the low 30s, I believe, for West Fir. And those come up annually.
Thank you.
And I would add to that, after the fee was implemented for the city of Oak Ridge, our city administrator negotiated some new prices for the other districts that are paying us by contract to also try and similarly recoup, because they are using some of our services, not all of our services, so it has to be, you know, they worked out a contract, so.
I was going over looking at the, or my name's Ponch Carmen. I was looking at the budget for this next year. And it showed a carryover of $300 and something thousand. Is that due to the ARPA funds, or is that come from the public safety fee? And I was curious, so if we have that ARPA funds, is that essentially something we're going to be looking to make up in the future?
So yes, so yes, that 374,000 that carried over, that is ARPA funds, you're correct in that. And what was your other question on that?
Is that the end to the ARPA funds? I understand it. So if they're not that's deficit for future years to find a way or make cuts.
Okay, so yeah, so that's a one-time thing that we got from the government, from the whole COVID thing. And the ARPA funds have to be spent on specific things. So we have used most of ours for infrastructure, some I&I for the water, stuff like that. So yeah, it's one time, and when it's gone, it's gone. But it's not a huge part of going forward, because like I said, that stuff that it's being spent on other stuff that's not our normal, you know, it's nice that we're being able to do some stuff with it that needed to be done.
I'm gonna follow up on that just a little bit. I did notice at the beginning of your question, you specified that the beginning fund balance was around $300,000, and you wondered if that was all ARPA funds. Was that correct?
I said, is it our fund of the city? I was kind of curious where it seemed much larger than I looked at it.
Right.
4 or 5 years back,
Previous.
and I was like, that looks quite a bit larger.
Part of it was ARPA funds being carried over from last year, but 168,000 of that 306 on that first line was our regular business funds carrying over. So part of ARPA carried over, but then we're also receiving further on down on that page, you will see another 374,000 coming in for this budget year. That is also ARPA funds. And when it's all gone, it's gone, exactly like she said. And I think roughly most of it is already budgeted for, isn't that right? A lot of it is already budgeted. Some of it's still open to be decided. And we have until 2026 to use it all.
Got a question here?
Hey, first I want to say thanks for the town hall meeting that we can all get together and discuss this. I have kind of a two-part thing because I always got thrown in my animal stuff. But my big question is, there was a legislative breakfast that I attended to recently, and there's lots of money out there that might free up some of the emergency services money that could possibly relieve the citizens for that public safety fee. I know it's only going to be implemented for 3 years, and I'm hoping that within that 3 years that in the city council or the itself may be able to investigate those monies out there that could help with the emergency services that would, like cahoots for the behavioral health. Sometimes our EMTs are having to answer calls regarding those issues. But if we have specific programs where we all network together and address those substance abuse, mental health, homelessness, all of those kind of emergency services that kind of pull the EMTs out of the norm of rescue services. So I'm hoping that that kind of gets investigated a little more. It was a really great, they said there was billions of dollars out there, and I'm hoping that y'all can get some of it. And then the other part was regarding the animals. If we don't have animal services through the police department, how are we collecting on any of the licensing fees, the things like that? Because every penny counts. So I'm hoping that some way there can be some animal services. And also I know that there's not a lot that comes through tickets, but like I say, every little penny counts. And if we can figure out ways the animal service, the bite, things like that. Cases where you see animal charges or whatever the tickets like are. I mean, all of that, all the citations and fines add up. So I was wondering how we are implementing the animal service, collecting on the animal service and stuff. If that makes any sense.
We broke up quite a bit on the animal service stuff, but I'll push that off to James. I think that goes under code enforcement, or if Chief Martin is online, maybe he can answer some of that. But when it comes to the legislation, what particular area were you talking about?
Lane County as a whole, they have lots of money out there, according to the 4 legislators that were at the breakfast meeting, and they were talking about homeless services and all of the behavioral health. It was called wraparound services. Wraparound services. And so with wraparound services of Lane County coming to the rural part in Oak Ridge, I'm thinking that would definitely maybe our EMTs from some of those things that they have to get dragged out to answer to.
Okay, well, a couple of things I want to put out there. So the Oregon Mayors Association is working on the homelessness epidemic, and we are working, there's a task force put together. I'm involved with that with Cottage Grove Mayor Gowing. So some of that stuff that you're talking about, I think is wrapped into that. I don't want to talk out of turn on it, but I believe that it is. But I know there's a lot of approvals waiting for that. So I would love to talk to you offline a little bit more about that stuff, because I know you and Tink are really well versed in that. But I do want to take a minute to mention the Senate Bill 762 that that Oak Ridge has really been taking advantage of. When Oregon State Fire Marshal's office was here for this big fire we've had, they really educated all of us on all the grants coming out. Staffing grant, the fire department has already taken advantage of seasonal worker staffing, already got that, and that's pretty much closing out now, I believe. But the next one up on the plate is apparatus grants, and Chief Hallett has already put in his application for that. And the next up on the plate out of 762 is possibly 3 to 4 year staffing, and that's his next thing to bring to council. There are some matching funds involved in that. So as you know, when we say matching funds, that means we have to have money in our bank to be able to access that grant. So that is on the fire side. I think there's a little bit more equipment grants and stuff rolling out, but Senate Bill 762 is really good for fire departments all over Oregon, and I can say Oak Ridge is taking advantage of every second of it. Thank you.
Yeah, just a little bit more on grant applications. We have a lot out and we're constantly trying to apply for them. Grants are sometimes frustrating. There were 2 major grants that I wanted to apply for. They were federal grants. Both of them required us to be rural and poor. We are both. However, with the one application, even though 45% of the population in Oak Ridge was below the poverty level, so we were definitely poor, we had to use the county statistics. So Lane County is not on average considered a poor county. Again, this is a federal grant. The other one said we were not rural enough because we lived within 50 miles of a major city. So it was very frustrating. One grant said we were, what's that? We do need to invite them to dinner. So those were 2 major grants we were ineligible for. It was very frustrating to be told with the one where we are rural, but we're not poor, and the other one we're poor, but not rural. I sent a couple of nasty emails. Hopefully they will change that. Insofar as writing tickets, so that used to be a thing. If anybody, well, Oak Ridge did that. There's a reputation there. Also, Coburg on I-5, they had, I think it was upwards of $2 million a year in revenue they were getting from speeding tickets. That went to the legislature because citizens didn't like that. And so where cities used to get like 90% of that money from a ticket, now it's down to like 10%, and the rest goes to the legislature. So it's not like that anymore, unfortunately, for speeding tickets. They've taken that ability to get that much money away from us. Now, our city ordinance tickets, a little bit different. We get higher percentage of those, but still not all of that money comes back.
So I have a question in regards to that. Why do we have speed limits? I mean, it seems pretty pointless. It's just one more of those things that, well, we're gonna do this, but we're gonna say we're not.
Well, we're definitely enforcing it. I mean, by writing speeding tickets. But we're just not writing as many as we used to back in the day, because back in the day we had 12 officers. Now we have 4, and crime is higher. And personally, I would rather have my cops dealing with the criminal cases they have to deal with versus writing tickets. I mean, but if the citizens push and decide that they don't want our cops investigating assaults, burglaries, et cetera, and they'd rather them just have them writing tickets, that's fine.
Well, lot of things that they're investigating that go nowhere. If people are caught breaking the law, burglary, speeding tickets, but they're not enforced either. They sort of have a pat on the hand and they're let back out on the streets to do the same thing again. I mean, am I wrong in that? My view is that the crime isn't getting any less, and the punishment seems to be minimal for those that are committing the crime, and substantial in some ways for those who are reporting.
If I may, thank you. This is one that I get very, very frustrated at as well. If you look at our police force, and if you could see what they do as far as the burglaries or frankly anything, any kind of criminal activity, they are very diligent. And I will say, I get really frustrated when people ask me because, and what I've started doing is having them ask, go talk to the police chief or to James. To be able to get something done, we do everything we can. We actually do. Our officers will, find them, arrest them, take them into jail, whatever needs to be done. And then from then on, it's up to the district attorney. The district attorney does not file on a lot of that stuff. And I have actually seen people that have been arrested standing at the Oak Ridge sign coming back into Oak Ridge as the police cars come back. So to be able to get those people punished, we have to have the DA's help. And we're not getting that. At least that's my opinion. It's got to be, something has to be done that way. We can do everything we want to do and everything that we need to do. But if she won't actually file the charges, there's nothing that we can do on that.
It just seems, to me, it seems to be passing the message on to our younger generation. We're not interested in the truth. We're not interested in following rules and regulations. And we're digging a hole. And where does it start that people say no? As a city council, you guys, I would think, have more authority. You're the voice of the people, so to speak. That's how I always viewed it. And I guess it's just real concerning to me to see things continue to deteriorate. And we have to go along with it, is the message I'm getting. That's just the way it is.
Just one minor clarification I want to make, that we do have a lot of authority on things that happen within our city, but when it comes to the county DA and what they choose to file on, we have zero authority, absolutely none.
Actually, I want to pass it down to James for, to add a little bit, but I want to point out that a couple of years ago, I did, as city councilor, have extensive conversations with our district attorney because I felt like we had a lot of repeat offenders that were not actually getting sentenced in the courts down in Lane County. I got a lot of runaround, a lot of it for a long period of time. But then, just recently, Patty Perlow, our county's district attorney, actually published a letter. James can probably specify what's in it, but she published it. She sent it to someone who made it available online to the entire county that states that she would not be filing for the next few years on specific kinds of crimes, and James will pick it up from there. That was 3 months ago, so it's like documented now.
Yeah, that's a new policy that just come up with. There's a list of crimes, and it's been in the register guard. Yeah, so there's a list of crimes that are not being prosecuted right now. What did she say? Oh, due to a lack of staff.
Then why not get our police control? And put out speeding tickets, you know, they're not gonna be. I mean, I don't know why this can't do both, you know, they get all.
Please do. Yeah, they're definitely writing tickets. It's just the right.
I did, yes, right. You know, well, people don't do it. I rarely see themselves. If I do, it's a state control.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see State Patrol a lot because they control the highway. They're supposed to be on 58. I can tell your officers are writing tickets when they can, but again, a lot of times there's one officer on. They're dealing with a criminal investigation. I think we'd all agree that's probably priority. And we can get you numbers. I can get at our next council meeting, I can have our police chief get numbers and we'll publish them. Just and our definitely.
That's what scares me. You see the violation, traffic violation, you think, you know, you can't do anything. What's gonna get the attention? And it scares me to think it's probably somebody's life or lives. And, you know, then it's too late.
I agree with you, and I could say that the bandwidth is better now. We are finally back to full staffing at the police departments. We've got 5 now, so there's a little bit more bandwidth to be doing more patrols, a little more coverage. I think I saw. Oh, I think Audie, pass the mic down.
Yeah, I think one thing that can happen here is the city council and our police department, our city administrator, doing everything we can. But I think what's going to need to happen is the public is going to have to speak up and put their voice into our DA. Because like you said, we can only do so much. We follow all the letters, the ABCs, take them in there, the DA won't prosecute them. And they get shoved back out to do the same thing. So there's nothing that we can do to stop that. So it continues on and on and on. And I mean, you have no problem with the theft. You call it in, our officers go out there, they take the guy, they give him the ticket or whatever, and they take him in because we have to take him into Lane County. And does it still cost us like $99 or something like that per person? Yeah. And that's all that's paid, and the DA turns them out, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Our officers are doing everything they can, and yet the DA turns everything out. So what we need is the public our citizens out here to voice in to the DA too. And, you know, voice in numbers helps. So if we get the citizens out here complaining to the DA, what's going on too, it's gonna help a lot too. So it's not just us here as a council. We can only do so much, the police officers can do so much. But if we start getting the public out here going in and voicing their opinion into the DA, that's gonna help them change everything too. So that's more what needs to happen too, is our public needs to get involved. And they need to get involved with everything, not just shove it off to the council and think it's gonna work. Once they start getting involved, just like me, when I went into council, I learned a lot. I learned more and more of what's going on every day. But we can only do so much. We need the backing of our citizens out there to pushing it into the DA too.
Well, and that's why it's so important to make sure that your citizenry is informed of what's going on too.
Right, I agree with that too, and that's why we held these conferences in here and try to get the public involved so that they know what's going on. And it's kind of hard to get a lot of people involved in anything, but we try our darndest to do that.
Okay, I have something to say too, and not meaning to be rude to anybody. I appreciate everybody here. But we can go over the budget, we can go over the police department, but that does not take care of the public safety thing. So we need to get back to that particular part. If I would like to see or hear some of the input from people on what they would like to see. Personally, I would like some ideas. We've got lots of ideas, we know what will work, but if people have an idea, I would love to hear that person.
And that's just by contacting you. I know there's some sort of Facebook page out there, but
I would suggest either calling Pauline or writing an email if you have an idea, or James or any of us. All our emails and even the telephone numbers are on the city website.
I think I just did. I mean, not. Yeah, I don't know how much more you want me to share my concerns. I'd like to know since it's
Since it's a public safety fee, I don't think it should be going in on the water bill. I don't even think it should be anything to do with the water. But I also don't think it should go into the general fund. I think that money should go designated for the safety fee. Because I feel like you alluded to having the pot, so you have to spend money for, well, you can't take the money out of that water pot and put it in the safety, not legally, I don't think. So I don't know what the billing would be, but when it goes, I have another question too. If you get it, if you don't have to pay it because of your income, but then it changes, your income changes from one year to another, how do you change that? I called City Hall and they said not to worry about it.
So those exemption forms, I believe, have to be reevaluated or completed once a year to address that issue that you're talking about right there.
Don't worry about it.
Well, a couple of things. It's actually, you got wrong information and I'm gonna fix that with staff. On the form, it does say if your income changes and goes above the level, you're supposed to notify us immediately. Well, we'll we'll fix that. There was a, okay, yeah, well, thank you for being honest about that. We'll send you a bill. The other part is that folks need to remember, if you do have an exemption, you do need to reapply every year for that reason. You may have come into a bunch of money or something like that, so just because, yes, by the end of June, you need to reapply because it's fiscal year. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into it. Like I said, I've only been here 3.5 months, so.
So I'd like to address that for you. So just because the billing for the public safety fee is put on the water bill itself, that does not mean that it's gonna go into the water fund. So even on our bill, you have your regular water bill, and then you also have a sewage bill on there as well. Those are also separated out. It's just the way when it comes in, how we code it to go where it needs to go. So it would not be put in with that. It's just a way of getting the bill out there with less issues. Yeah.
I know, I've seen that we're, looking at special district. And, one of the other things is there anything else that, I've only here a year ago. Is there any other ideas? Are there any other ideas that have been looked at and maybe either rejected or also being considered currently?
There are several different things. Some of them are larger than others and some are quite small. One of them, as you mentioned, is special districts. That could be a way to have more stability with our emergency services and our partners. That's not necessarily, it doesn't mean cheaper. It means stable and something, as this lady here mentioned before, there's always a distrust from the citizens when you pay a public safety fee. They don't like hearing that it goes into the general fund. Having a special district kind of distributes out the cost for services more evenly, and it also puts a little bit more trust into the citizens because they're paying that in their taxes. It goes straight to fire and emergency services. It doesn't go to the library or public works or police, it goes to the special district. That's just one part of it. Also, we've been talking about short-term housing. Myself, Colleen, and James have had 2 meetings now with different people looking at ways that we can better work on that. There's some areas that Colleen's found that the city has historically not charged for short-term housing. And that's actually a big one that's come in from citizens, as they really want us to take a look better at the Airbnbs. That's a big one that we hear a lot about. So those are a couple areas, as Chief Pollitt mentioned before, the GEMT one, like he said, it went from 40,000 3 years ago. Now we're up to 90,000. So we're hoping that number keeps growing a little bit, but there's some other areas there as well. Any more areas you guys can think of? Obviously, grants. We're trying for every grant we can.
Yeah, but just keep in mind, grants are specific. When we apply for a grant, it'll be for a fire truck, or it'll be for a parks project, or, now some of that money, if it's something we were going to do anyway, we might have some money that's been freed up to put towards other things. But if it's, for instance, a roads project, that's something we couldn't afford on our own. So that the money would go to that project only. There aren't really any grants out there that are just free money that you can do whatever you want with it, unfortunately.
Another one that's come up before, but bringing a levy option back on the table could always come up again. Probably likely will. But another one is gas tax, and nobody wants to hear those words, but those are other options out there on the table. But gas taxes, you know, the street fund, that's not usually a gas tax, isn't somewhere where we can, you know, pay for city hall stuff. We definitely need a lot more money in our city street funds, so that is one that we probably need to revisit.
So I'm wondering, how about if each department receiving the public safety fee money, provide an itemization of how that money is spent, so then the public can feel more comfortable in knowing exactly where it goes.
We've got a copy of the budget and expenditures right here. It's also available online. And you can see that, you can see it. You can see all of our spending for every year, and that's state law. Sometimes it's hard to read, but I'm sure Colleen or someone could explain any questions you might have.
So true. Yeah, so I think what you're asking is that public safety money, did you buy turnouts or police bulletproof vests, right? Are you asking what specific things?
Yeah.
That's not really exactly how it works. Yes, the public safety fee goes into the police budget and goes into the fire budget. But something James mentioned earlier was because we have a deficit, we have to make cuts in order to sustain services. So those cuts would most likely happen in the police department and the fire department. So that public safety fee covers that gap that's in those two departments. It doesn't necessarily say, with this money, we're buying guns and fire hoses. Does that make sense? It's the gap. So it's filling that gap that where our deficit's at. And there is a police department report from Chief Martin and a fire department report from Chief Hollett. And I do think those two do really well describe kind of a little snapshot of how it's helped them sustain services in those areas. Would you guys?
So Counselor
Hooker asked, you know, what our thoughts are. The slide you had up here that showed the graph of what we have without the fee and without ARPA and what the expenditures are, I think that's a pretty significant view of where we're at. So in my opinion, if the safety fee keeps us with the level of what we have right now, which isn't enough, I mean, we all know that, we'd like to have more, but if it will keep us where we need to be to continue with the services that we have, then I think the answer is we have to continue with it. Some of the problem that keeps going in my mind is we just keep kicking the can down the road and we keep saying, what do you guys want? Well, the community has said they don't want to pay it, but you can bet they don't want to get rid of the ambulance or the fire either. So I just think that it's time. I mean, how long can we go? Was it renewed again in June for another year, or does it?
Yeah, the ordinance was actually written for 3 years, that it can't go past 3 years without a new ordinance, in other words. Yeah, the amount of the fee is to be reviewed annually during our budget season. This last budget season, there was a lot of stuff going on with new staff, and just a lot of stuff going on. So the dollar amount actually hasn't been discussed yet. And that's part of the reason why we called this town hall meeting was, yes, it needs to come back onto our plate. James is planning on bringing it to a council meeting in the very near future. But we wanted to hear from the citizens first. We wanted to know how everybody's feeling now about having been charged this fee for the last year before we make a decision to move into the last half of this. It's only set up for 3 years, so we're already halfway through it. Does that help?
Yeah, I just think it's not gonna change. I mean, there's very few people here when you think about how many people live in this town and how many people have been very vocal on Facebook and everywhere else, that they don't wanna pay it. They're not here. So it's time, in my opinion, and I'm probably not gonna be very popular, so you're probably gonna read about me on Facebook later. It's time, it's time. I mean, we just have to say, we have to have this. To me, it's pretty black and white. Maybe the cost is gonna change, and as Colleen said, if everybody would pay their fair share, we might be able to drop that. But the problem is, the majority of the people that aren't paying it. And even those that are on a fixed income, can they pay half? We're so quick to say you don't have to pay anything if you're on a fixed income. Reality is, we all live. We all only have so much money to continue to pay our bills, so instead of waiving something completely, why can't we think about cutting it in half, so at least we're still getting a little bit of revenue? I mean, we can have the same conversation next year, and we're gonna have the same amount of people here.
So I want to answer quite a few things you just talked about. That is something that Colleen has been, she's working on that. Could we lower that fee? What could it be? And then if we do that, do we change the exemption form?
Yes.
So maybe there's not as many exemptions. I'm just gonna throw a dollar number out there. Let's say we drop it down to 15. Well, we drop it down to 15, maybe the council needs to look at changing either the income level, or maybe just not having an exemption policy at all, and then everybody has to pay it. That's an option out there, but she's working on more numbers, trying to find out where we are. You had a lot of things I wanted to comment to, but we talked about this a little bit in some of our meetings, but you know, obviously nobody at this table wants to do a $22 fee. Nobody in the audience wants it. Nobody wants it. But it comes to we have to figure out where we want to be. We could drop the amount to $15 maybe, and then we can just break even. But I think what this community wants, I don't think the community wants to break even. I think the community wants to move forward. I hear people want our streets fixed. Obviously, this isn't going into our streets, but you know, they want more police officers. They want more businesses. They want Oak Ridge to catch up with the times. And I think everybody agrees here, but we can't do that if we don't have the dollars. Or like James said before, our tax revenues here, it's not moving, but that is a little bit that fills the gap that helps us to keep moving forward and to invite more businesses to come to Oak Ridge, and then maybe, you know, businesses that come here, new families that come here, they're not seeing us make, you know, more cuts to our police department. Instead, right now, they see that we just, you know, brought on three new police officers. They see that we have an EMS coordinator now. Those are things that people think about when they come to the town. They look at the school, they look at the services and all those things. And if we're cut back to, you know, 1 or 2 cops and we can't get an ambulance out the door, it's not very desirable. And even with city services, you know, if you walk in there and they're not open enough during the week, or if they don't have people that can do building permits or that can even pay your bill, all those things are huge factors to citizens here. So I just wanted to say that with the $22, people need to think about, we can lower that possibly, but do we want to be just barely getting by, or do we want to be moving forward?
I think it's also important to consider the butterfly effect. If, let's say we didn't have an ambulance anymore, what's that going to do to your insurance rates? It's going to increase them, and you may not even be able to get insurance. If we don't have police and crime gets even higher than it already is, your car insurance is going to be more expensive, just like it is, you know, if you live in Chicago, it's really high compared to living in a rural place. And those figures are hard to quantify. And so I try to explain to people sometimes that, yeah, it sucks to have to pay $22 a month. But if we get away with it and lost police, lost ambulance, whatever, lost firefighters, you know, our ISO rating for fires, insurance is going to go up. So you're going to end up paying possibly more than $22 a month. just an increased insurance cost. But again, those are hard to quantify because everybody's policy is a little different, so it's hard to make that case with physical numbers in front of people. But we all know that can happen.
27% of the people aren't paying the fund right now. It's an ordinance, we didn't pass it as a bond. Why can't we make it part of the water bill and have that be a penalty? I mean, I don't understand, you know.
We can, that's a council decision, what they want to do.
We didn't want to pass up, we don't want it. So if they don't want to have to put on their water bill, what's the big difference?
So they, actually closer to 80.
But that's a lot. That's a lot of money.
That is, but you know, a lot of those people are exempt, because we are, 45% of our community lives below poverty line, and that's the line that we're using. So there are actually some folks that are eligible for an exemption, but they're still paying the fee because they want to, or possibly they don't know about the exemption. Yeah. I do wonder about that. Yeah, $10 a pack, how they're doing that, but
Want to use your butterfly effect a little bit backwards. I know I have to pay a certain fee. That's what I asked the question, why is that just? Why is this fee justified? Say, well, because it's poverty. Okay, why are people poor? Because we don't have jobs, we don't have high paying jobs, or because we're a drug addict, we don't have treatment. A lot of the time, they have a source, they have a beginning. Right now, we're just talking about how to create this problem. We need to look high pay. I have a lot of wisdom in here, but I have some help that we need to find out the source of. We need to go and keep asking why do we have to try to find people? Because we don't have a car, in drug use, we have a problem. A lot of people do petty theft because they have a drug problem. They have a drug problem. You need to work our way down towards problem, not just assume that you have to pay a certain amount to cure. That's the butterfly effect. It's just looking backwards instead of looking forward. I don't know, maybe that's not appropriate for us. Maybe that's something we should have in this earlier. But it's a very difficult continuous improvement process. It takes time, takes volunteers, takes a way of learning. Boy, there's plenty of intelligence. I think do some things. We just encourage the council to look for the why question. How did we get here? Can we fix that? We only need a $10 fee. We got rid of 50% of the bad actors. I don't know. I'm not in favor of punishment. They need treatment. They need something to get us to continue to say, well, we're going to let you curse. Now,
That's true, but it would also cost money to help them.
What was the question here?
I was just pointing out that it would actually also cost money to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to figure out that's going to be worth it.
Right.
That's part of your analysis.
Sure.
You know, you're right. There's always a cost.
Yeah, and we do have a couple ladies in the back of the room that are actually doing way more than most of us.
So we do have. I was gonna spare you till Sunday, just no. We do have some, coming into Oakridge, doesn't really have much to do with the fee, so, we're working on.
Programs. Drug
recommendations about the program. We are working on transitional housing. There's some city ordinance things that need to happen with that. I've been working in the community with the homeless for about 5 years. So Judy does the animal rescue. So you have services coming in, veteran services, Easter seals, HIV alliance, services to get them off of drugs, and we do a short-term program. There are those things here.
I've lost Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting close to 8 o'clock here, but just making sure are there any more questions? Is anything online? Oh, I'm sorry, and I forgot a question that came in via email prior. And the question was, why can't city employees take voluntary pay cuts? Which is a reasonable question. Most city employees have a contract through their unions, so we can't really impose that on them. I know I've talked to Chief Hollett, and I think there were a number of years where there were pay freezes. Is that right, Chief? Okay. So that has happened. But as far as taking pay cuts, that would kind of have to be their idea from the union, and contracts would have to be renegotiated. But again, if you looked at the numbers of what we're already paying folks, we're already pretty low compared to the state average. And it's been hard sometimes to recruit.
Yeah, he was gonna mention recruiting. I just wanted to say something on the pay cuts. We had a position, firefighter paramedics that advertised for the fire department for, gosh, well over 6 months, right? Not a single applicant. Guess why? Because our salary advertisement is just too low. It is not competitive. And guess what happened in the police department? Same thing. Our salaries are not competitive. We are very fortunate though. We ended up getting people for both police and fire that kind of towards the end of their career, or maybe they've already retired out from somewhere else and they want to be in a small community. And so we did get some new people that came on. We were very fortunate, but those positions sat for an extremely long time. But lastly, I think we're kind of closing things out, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that myself, all the counselors and staff are very, very, very available. All of our contact information is on the city website, phone number, email. I meet with people for coffee all the time, chat anytime, and I know the staff is the same way. So reach out anytime if you have an idea or a thought that comes to you later on.
I want to thank you guys for doing the job. How thick a skin you have. Being a governing body, why don't you just raise the tax?
Legally, we can.
That, yeah.
Matter. On the law, let him leave.
You're right.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't understand the problem. But I just.
Call it a donation.
Yeah.
I was hoping really, and I think a lot of us were, that we would have more people come out with, as Rusty said, with the chat forum. There should have been 3 times this size in the building of people. However, you guys have taken the time to come out, and I want to thank all of you for doing that. We respect you for doing that. I also would like to say, you know, you're right, Rusty. I honestly think there are times when we have to say enough discussion, you know, we can run up and down these stairs, but sooner or later we're going to fall. So I think you guys have helped us all try and understand. And if anybody again needs to get a hold of any of us, we're on the computer And if you need a phone number and don't have a computer, stop me, I'll give them all to you.
Didn't mean to insinuate any derogatory thing towards the homeless. I compared the guy finding money for cigarette. What I was saying is, I need these services, probably more than he needs a cigarette. So,
We understood, the thing that we said for our, our lobbying, right? You know,
I think one of the reasons that a lot of people are feeling disgruntled about it is the ones of us that are paying the 22, and there's a lot of people that are not. If it were more even and everybody paid it, it wouldn't feel so unfair.
I agree with that, and I think another thing is, the way that it was put out. It was dropped during budget season, it was a surprise to us, we'd never heard of what a public safety fee was. To have it come the way that it did in such a fast manner, and it was really, just constantly arguing, it was really tough. And then when it did get billed out, there was no education piece put out to the public at the same time saying, hey, here's what this fee is, here's why, here's what it's gonna do. That didn't happen, and I think all of us would agree, if we could go back, I mean, we all have probably a toilet paper roll list of things that should have been done differently.
We've got another year to figure it out and put it out there again, and maybe get it on the ballot for a levy and explain it.
The levy portion, yeah, I want to say the one problem is with the levy is we only have a very small window of what we can ask for. I think it has a $10 max, and we're at we can, 701 is what we're at right now, so we can only ask for $2.99 for the theft per thousand.
Per thousand.
property tax.
Assessed value.
So, yeah, assessed value, so it's a small number. I definitely agree, it would be much better to get a yes on the levy than doing the public safety fee. I think all of us agree with that.
Well, there again, the ones that get out of book for that are the property owners and not the renters.
Yeah,
How many
But if
property
you
owners don't
everybody
everybody
that lives in over important thing to do. And make it across the board.
But even if you rent, it's passed on to you by the property owner.
Sometimes.
yeah, we're aware of that.
I would also say that when something does finally happen and we get this all down and we come to a decision, we put it out there so that know what we're doing and why. Tell your friends, don't let them listen to the Oak rumor. Don't, that is one of the biggest problems I think we have in Oak. Because it's like, I'll tell you that it's $5, you tell somebody that it's $6, but it gets back to me, it's $106. You know, we need to be honest with each other. Yeah. And you guys need help.
You gotta shut down the station.
There's some good things. It wasn't fishy.
We would like to, go with planner position. For the people that are out. All of you that are out. To thank you and apply. Really. To discuss it. Please welcome the town. The people show up and do it. So, writing on the computers, on Facebook. And I would like to also, well, people who just show up online, too. I don't know if all the word. Thank you very much. And the people that are. Thank you.
We are at 8:07. I think we were gonna end at 8, so was there one
more question up here, or you want to talk more about offline, Green? Oh, offline. Okay, so let's let James do some closing statements and just thank you all for coming tonight.
Here's my closing statement. Thank you all for coming. We are done. All right, but we'll stick around for a while if anybody has any one-on-one questions.
Third.